Good morning, cadets. We have studied the molar specific heats, specific heat at a constant pressure, specific heat at a constant volume for monoatomic, diatomic, and polyatomic molecules of gases, right? So, thus we discussed the molar specific heat calculations using equipartition of energy, law of equipartition of energy. Let us solve one problem, right? A cylinder of fixed capacity 44.8 liters contains helium gas at standard temperature and standard pressure. What is the amount of heat needed to raise the temperature of gas in the cylinder by 15 degrees Celsius? So there is a cylinder which is of a fixed volume. It is of a fixed volume and the volume is 44.8 liters and it is filled with helium gas, right, at standard temperature and standard pressure. We know what is standard temperature. Standard temperature T is equal to some degree Kelvin. Standard pressure 1 atmospheric pressure. One 0.013 into 10 raised to 5 pascals. So these are the things. 1 atmospheric pressure. Now helium is taken in a cylinder of 44.8 liters at standard temperature and pressure. So how many moles of helium are present? You see, one can very easily prove that at standard temperature and pressure, the volume of helium of 22.4 liters occupies 1 mole of gas. 1 mole of helium. 1 mole of helium occupies 22.4 liters of volume at STP. Therefore, here the capacity of the cylinder is 44.8 liters. Therefore, the amount of substance, amount of helium occupied in 44.8 liters of volume, 22.4 can hold 1 mole, therefore for 44.8, so 2, this is, you can cancel it by 2, therefore it can hold 2 moles of helium gas. So amount of substance is found out now, 2 moles of helium. So therefore number of moles of helium gas in the cylinder mu is equal to 2 moles. Once you get 2 moles, now we can go for calculating the amount of heat needed to raise the temperature of this gas by 15 degrees Celsius. So before that, here the volume is fixed. Volume is 44.8 liters. So volume, that is V is 44.8 liters, is constant. So in order to calculate heat needed, we should know the specific heat. So we need to consider specific heat of helium gas, molar specific heat of helium gas at constant volume. Therefore, since volume is constant, therefore molar specific heat of helium gas. Helium gas, helium gas is a monoatomic gas. So molar specific heat of monoatomic gas we have already calculated in the previous video. It is 3 by 2 R, where R is the universal gas constant, 3 by 2 R. So we can make use of this equation. And molar specific heat at constant pressure is 5 by 2 R. This is at constant volume. So molar specific heat at constant volume is 3 by 2 R. Now we can very easily calculate. Therefore, amount of heat needed to raise the temperature of 2 moles of helium gas, delta Q is equal to mu into CV into delta T, mu into CV into delta T. If it is in terms of grams or if it is in terms of kilograms, then mu will be replaced by m. So here it is in terms of moles. Therefore, delta Q is equal to mu into CV into delta T. So mu is 2 moles, CV is 3 by 2 R, then delta T 15 degree Celsius difference in temperature is equal to 15 Kelvin. Difference in temperature, if it is 15 degrees Celsius, then difference of temperature in Kelvin is also 15 Kelvin. So if you cancel 2, then you are left with 45 R. 15 threes are 45. 45 R, if you calculate 45 into 8.314 joule per mole per Kelvin, then you will get the result, that is heat needed. So if you calculate this comes out to be 374 joule. This comes out to be 374 joules. So this is how we need to make use of the values of molar specific heat at constant volume when the volume is constant, and value of molar specific heat at constant pressure, that is Cp 5 by 2 R. So since helium is a monoatomic gas, so we get Cv equal to 3 by 2 R. Okay, this is how we need to solve. Okay. So the calculated values of molar specific heat using the law of equipartition of energy, by applying law of equipartition of energy, they are in agreement with the experimentally obtained values. We have obtained the Cp and Cv values. We have obtained the Cp and Cv values for monoatomic gas, diatomic gas, and even for can be calculated even for polyatomic gases. So Cp, Cv and gamma, that is Cp by Cv values, which were obtained by applying law of equipartition of energy, those values are in good agreement with the experimentally observed values. Thus, the kinetic interpretation and the kinetic theory of gases are very well in agreement with the experimentally observed values. The kinetic theory explains the behavior of gases as we compare the molar specific heats in comparison with the experimentally observed values. Now let us see Specific heats of solids. Solids, the molecules are closely packed. They will have only vibrational mode of energy. They cannot move. They cannot undergo translation motion. They cannot undergo rotational motion. They can undergo only vibrational motion. Therefore, in order to calculate specific heat of solids, we need to take into consideration of vibrational mode of energy only, so that we can apply law of equipartition of energy. Consider a solid with n atoms. Each atom will have only vibrational mode of energy. So, if it is vibrating in only one line, then it will have 2 into half kBt. Each atom, if it vibrates only along one dimension, then it will have 2 into half kBt. But this atom in the solid can vibrate about x-axis, about y-axis, and even about z-axis in 3 dimensions. Okay. The vibrational mode of energy in each dimension, vibrational mode of energy in each dimension is equal to 2 into half kBt per molecule. That is equal to kBt per molecule. Since the molecule can vibrate in 3 dimensions, three dimensions means about x-axis it can vibrate, about y-axis it can vibrate, or about z-axis it can vibrate. So it has got 3 dimensional vibrations. 3 dimensional vibrations. So it will have then since molecule can vibrate in 3 dimensions, the average energy of each molecule of each molecule becomes equal to 3 kBt. 3 kBt. Now we will calculate for 1 mole. Consider 1 mole of solid. For 1 mole of solid sample, the total average energy U becomes equal to 3 kBt into Avogadro number. So it becomes 3 Na kBt, where Na is R. Therefore, U becomes equal to 3RT. 3RT. Therefore, now we can calculate very easily the molar specific heat. molar specific heat of solids at constant pressure. At constant pressure can be calculated Cp equal to delta Q by delta T. See, delta Q, you know, delta Q using first law of thermodynamics is delta U plus P delta V. Delta Q is equal to delta U plus P delta V, right? Now, volume of a solid does not change when we supply the heat. The increase in volume is negligible, so delta V becomes 0. So these terms become 0 since hardly as the volume of a solid can change. Therefore, delta Q becomes equal to delta U. So here I will write delta U upon delta T, which is also nothing but Cp equal to Cv for solids, since there is no change in volume. Therefore, delta U by delta T plus 0, because P delta V by delta T, if you take this term becomes 0, therefore I am writing 0. So thus, if you differentiate this 3R, see, delta U by delta T of 3RT, it becomes only 3R. So if you multiply 3 with the gas constant, we get the result of specific heat of solid. So if you calculate 3 into the gas constant, 8.314, it comes out to be almost 24.9. You can take it as 25 joule per mole per Kelvin. So this is the predicted value using the law of equipartition of energy, using the kinetic theory of the solids, kinetic theory, right? Cp is equal to 25 joule per mole per Kelvin. So this is a constant. 25 joule per mole per Kelvin is for solids. When you compare this with the experimentally observed values for various solids like aluminium, copper, lead and other metals, almost they are having same value, 24.9 or 25, almost they are having same value, that is nearly about 25 joule per mole per Kelvin. That's how the specific heat values of solids which are experimentally observed are in good agreement with the theoretically calculated value using kinetic theory of solids, kinetic theory of matter. That's how kinetic theory becomes successful. In the same way, we can calculate what is the specific heat of water. See, water consists of 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen. So, water molecule, if you consider water as a water vapor molecule has 3 atoms and it is triatomic vapor gas, triatomic gas. So we can calculate the specific heat of water in gaseous state also, specific heat of water in liquid state also. And when we calculate, again we will have certain value which is again in good agreement with the experimentally obtained value. Okay. Now we will calculate a specific heat of water. Water can also be just treated like a solid. So the water molecules will also have only vibrational mode of energy in the state of liquid, just like a solid. So each atom will have average energy 3 kBT. When the atom is capable of vibrating in 3 dimensions, about x-axis, about y-axis and about z-axis, each vibrational mode has half kBT about x-axis, half kBT about y-axis and half kBT about z-axis, contributes 3 kBT. So average energy of an atom in a water molecule is 3 kBT. So water has 3 molecules. Water has 3 atoms, 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. Therefore, each water molecule, H2O molecule, will have 3 into 3 kBT of average energy. Water is also treated like solid so that each molecule possesses only vibrational mode of energy. Vibrational mode of energy. Average energy per molecule, per atom, average energy per atom is 3 kBT. Therefore, since water has 3 atoms, H2O, 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. Water has 3 atoms, 2 H atoms and 1 oxygen atom. So average energy per molecule. Thus, the average energy per molecule, becomes 3 into 3 kBT. Since it is having 3 atoms, 3 into 3 kBT becomes 9 kBT. Now let us consider 1 mole of water. Now, for 1 mole of water, average kinetic energy, which is nothing but internal energy, average energy, kinetic energy, internal energy, now becomes 3 into 3, that is 9 kBT, into number of molecules in 1 mole. Number of molecules in 1 mole is Avogadro number for 1 mole of water. So it becomes 9 NaKBT. 9 NaKBT. 9 NaKBT becomes 9 RT. 9 RT. Therefore, molar specific heat at constant pressure again can be calculated as which is also equal to molar specific heat at constant volume for liquid state. I am saying, as we have treated here earlier, here we are going to have same. So there is no need to mention Cp or Cv. Molar specific heat can be now directly calculated as du by dt. Du by dt. So if you calculate du by dt, it becomes d by dt of 9 RT. So dt cancels, that is dt by dt is 1, therefore it becomes 9 R. So molar specific heat of water, therefore molar specific heat of water thus becomes equal to 9 into 8.314. So if you calculate it, it almost comes out to be 74 point something, that is 75 joule per mole per Kelvin. Joule per mole per Kelvin. We know the specific heat of water per gram, which is equal to 1 calorie, right? So this is the molar specific heat, that is for 1 mole of water, which is having Avogadro number of molecules, 6.023 into 10 raised to 23 molecules in 1 mole, that is 75 joule per mole per Kelvin. This can be verified with the experimental value of the specific heat per gram, that is specific heat of 1 gram of water. So we know this is predicted value using the kinetic theory, using the law of equipartition of energy. It can be verified. Verification for gram specific heat of water. Specific heat of water per gram is 1 calorie per gram per Kelvin. 1 calorie is equal to 4.18 joule per gram per Kelvin. So 1 mole of water has 18 grams of water. 1 mole of water has 18 grams by mass. 18 gram of mass. 1 mole of water has 18 gram by mass. Therefore, specific heat in terms of grams. Therefore, for 1 mole of water, therefore for 1 mole of water, it becomes 1 calorie. That is per gram it is 1 calorie. Therefore, for 18 gram it becomes 18 calorie per mole. 18 calorie per mole per Kelvin. I think you got the point. 1 mole of water has 18 gram. Therefore, 1 calorie. 1 gram per gram it is 1 calorie. Per gram per Kelvin it is 1 calorie. Therefore, for per mole per Kelvin it is going to be 18 into 1. Then it becomes 18 calorie per mole per Kelvin. 18 calories per mole per Kelvin. So, if you convert calorie into joules, you will get in terms of joule per mole. 18 into 4.18. 18 into 4.18 joule per mole per Kelvin. Joule per mole per Kelvin. If you calculate this also comes out to be same, almost 75 joule per mole per Kelvin. So this is the value obtained from experiments. So this is experimentally observed value. Experimentally observed value. This is predicted value using kinetic theory. So thus liquids like water will have the specific heats which are in good agreement with the experimentally observed value. That's how kinetic theory becomes successful in the prediction of the molar specific heats, in the calculation of molar specific heats using law of equipartition of energy. Okay. Now, finally, we are discussing one more important part, that is mean free path and the average collision time, collision frequency, right, which is very, very important. Molecules in a gas, like molecules of air, are moving with a very high speed of the order of speed of sound. We have calculated the molecule, root means square speed of the nitrogen molecule. If you remember in one of the previous videos, it was calculated around about 512 meter per second. So like that, if you calculate for oxygen, it is nearly about 485 meter per second. So on an average, we can say the molecules in the air are moving at a speed which is almost equal to speed of sound in the air. But when we look at certain molecules in the gas, like when you might have observed the smoke that is rising out of burning tire, the smoke that is rising out of burning tire doesn't spread so easily, doesn't spread so quickly. It will form a huge thick black cloud. So if you observe the molecules in that black cloud of smoke, the molecules do not disperse, the molecules do not diffuse so easily. It takes long hours for the spread of those molecules into the air. Similarly, when there is a gas leakage in the kitchen, the molecules of that gas does not reach to the other corner of the room, other corner of the home so easily. Before they could go to the other corners, they undergo lot of collisions among themselves. So, in general, we can say, even though the molecules in a gas are free to move having very high speeds, but because of their density, if the gas is of highly dense in nature, then the molecules will undergo number of collisions among themselves, and thus they do not undergo diffusion, they will not diffuse so easily. So their paths will not be straight as expected. So before they could move in a straight path, they undergo so many collisions, so they will get deflected, and therefore their spreading is not so easy. So that is what now we are discussing. What is that average distance between two successive collisions? The average distance between two successive collisions, we call it as mean free path. Average distance between two successive collisions is called as mean free path. So since collisions are occurring very, very frequently, the gas molecules of a gas leaked from a cylinder do not disperse so easily. You need to take a thick cloth, you need to take a rug, thick rug, and spread it. You have to open the windows carefully, you have to open the windows, and you need to allow it to go through the window by actually using a thick rug or thick blanket. Then only the gas molecules will be spread. That is the nature of the dense gases, like smoke, right? Even if you look at the top of a cloud, the molecules do not spread, the molecules do not disperse so easily because of number of collisions that are taking place. We will now calculate what is this mean free path. By calculating the mean free path, that is the average distance between two successive collisions, we will be able to calculate what is that average collision time, average time taken between two successive collisions. Once we come to know average time taken between two successive collisions, we will be having an idea of the collision frequency. By the knowledge of collision frequency, we will be able to predict how difficult it is to disperse the gas which is in dense state, that is like that of a cloud or that of the smoke, cloud of smoke, or that of the gas that is leaked from a gas cylinder. Okay, so that is why we are now calculating mean free path. Now consider one molecule which is moving with certain average speed. Consider a molecule of diameter d moving with average speed v bar, and since we are considering a similar molecule, all the sizes of the molecules are of same diameter. Let us consider the diameter of these molecules to be d. Suppose molecules of a gas are spheres, or sizes of spheres or shapes of spheres of diameter d. Let d be the diameter of each molecule of a gas. Now focus on one single molecule. This is the molecule which we are focusing, which is moving with average speed v bar. Right? Now this molecule will suffer with other molecules whichever they come in its path. It suffers collision with any molecule that comes within a distance d between the centers. It will have a collisions with all those molecules with the minimum distance between their centers is equal to d. See, here the radius is d by 2. So whatever the molecule that comes with a distance of d between the centers, suppose when it is here, the distance between these two centers becomes d. So it will have a collision. It suffers collision with any molecule that comes within a distance d between the centers of those two molecules. Now we can calculate how many number of such molecules are there within a short period of time delta t. Suppose it is we want to calculate how many number of molecules they are going to have a collisions in a short period of time delta t. In short period of time delta t, let us suppose that it is covering a distance of v bar delta t. Suppose v bar delta t is the distance that it covers within a short duration of time delta t. Within this short duration of time delta t, it covers such a long distance v bar delta t, and in this short duration of time, how many number of collisions it undergoes, we want to calculate. That can be calculated by knowing the number density of molecules of this gas. Number density of molecules means number of molecules per unit volume. So that can be calculated. The average distance in the time, short time, in short time delta t, average distance covered is equal to v bar delta t. It is also denoted as bracket v. Both are same. V bar or bracket v are the notations for mean value or average value. So in short time delta t, it covers a distance of v bar delta t. Then how many number of collisions it undergoes can be calculated by knowing the knowledge of, by calculating the volume. If the total volume covered in time delta t will be the volume of this cylinder, volume swept out by the molecule in time delta t. Volume swept out will be area of the cylinder multiplied by its length. Area of the cylinder is pi d square. You can see pi d square into the length covered is v bar delta t or bracket delta t, bracket v delta t. This becomes the volume swept out by the molecule, the moving molecule. Volume swept out by this moving molecule. This is the moving molecule. This is one on which we are focusing. Then we can calculate how many number of collisions. If n is number of molecules per unit volume of the gas, then the number of molecules present in this volume can be calculated. The number of molecules present in this can be calculated by multiplying it with this volume, right? If n is the number density of molecules, number of molecules per unit volume, then the molecules within the volume, the total number of molecules, the number of molecules within the volume, number of molecules within the volume becomes n into pi d square into v delta t. These many number of molecules will be present. Means this molecule which is in motion will have collisions with so many number of molecules in time delta t. This implies the moving molecule suffers n pi d square into average velocity delta t number of collisions in time delta t. In time delta t. Now I can calculate what is the number of collisions per second. That is what we call as collision frequency. Number of collisions per second can be calculated as n pi d square v delta t divided by delta t. Delta t cancels. That gives us the number of collisions per second. Number of collisions per second is also called as collision frequency. Therefore, number of collisions per second, which we can call it as collision frequency. F is equal to n pi d square v delta t divided by delta t. So delta t cancels. Therefore, collision frequency F becomes equal to n pi d square average velocity bracket v. Now we can calculate average collision time. Therefore, average collision time. Average collision time is the average time taken between two successive collisions. Average time taken between two successive collisions. It is denoted by a notation tau. It is called as tau. Tau is equal to 1 by f. We know time period t equal to 1 by frequency. Therefore, tau is equal to 1 by f. So that gives us 1 by n pi d square average velocity v. So now we can define what is average collision time. Average collision time is also called as relaxation time. Relaxation time period. This is another word. Relaxation time period tau. It is defined as the average time between two successive collisions. Average time between two successive collisions. This is how we define average collision time tau. Okay. Therefore, tau is equal to this value. Now we can calculate what is mean free path. Therefore, the mean free path is defined as average length between two successive collisions. Average distance between two successive collisions is called as mean free path. Mean free path. The average distance between two successive collisions is called mean free path, denoted by L. Mean free path denoted by L. So L can be calculated using the average velocity and time. Therefore, L can be calculated as average velocity into tau. Average velocity into tau, if you substitute, look at this. Average velocity is V bracket V into tau. So V cancels. So if you just multiply this, we get finally 1 by n pi d square. That's it. 1 by n pi d square. But while calculating this mean free path and while calculating the number of collisions per second, we assumed that the molecules which are coming in contact with the moving molecule are at rest. We assumed that the molecules which are coming within that small cylindrical volume, we assume that they are at rest, but actually those molecules are also in motion. So instead of considering average velocity of the moving molecule, we need to consider average relative velocity. That is the correction needed to be done. So instead of bracket B, we have to consider bracket BR, average relative velocity. So if we consider average relative velocity, then this equation will be little modified and a corrected equation will be there for mean free path. Here we imagine the other molecules which are going to come in contact to be at rest, but these molecules are also in motion. So these molecules are also in actual motion. Therefore, the average speed which we have considered, V bracket, is to be replaced by average relative speed VR. So average speed is to be replaced by average relative speed VR. So then relaxation time. Relaxation period, or what we call average collision time, relaxation period or average collision time tau becomes here 1 upon n pi d square VR. 1 upon n pi d square VR. This VR is found to be equal to 1 upon root 2 times n pi d square V. Means V has to be replaced by this V has to be replaced by VR, and this VR is found to be 1 upon root 2 times n pi d square V. This is a calculated value. Okay, calculated value. So correction, you can say this is the correction. So thus mean free path the average distance between two successive collisions, mean free path, L now becomes VR into tau. VR into tau, if you just calculate, tau cancels, and we get 1 upon root 2 n pi d square. 1 upon root 2 n pi d square. So when this cancels with this, we get 1 upon root 2 n pi d square. Okay, 1 upon root 2 n pi d square. So this is the equation for the corrected mean free path. Corrected mean free path. So from this, the mean free path is found to be inversely proportional to density, number density of molecules. That is very, very important. More the density of the molecules in a gas, less is the mean free path. Less the mean free path, right? Less the mean free path, less is the relaxation period, less is the average distance between two collisions. Time taken between two successive collisions, if it is less, then number of collisions occurring per second will be more. As a result, the gas molecules will not be easily spread. The gas molecules will not be easily diffused. That's how it takes long hours for a cloud of smoke to disperse in the air. That is the reason. So L is inversely proportional to number density, and L is also inversely proportional to the diameter D. L is also inversely proportional to the diameter of the molecule. Diameter of the molecule. Larger the size of the molecule, lesser is the mean free path. Lesser is the mean free path. More is the number of collisions occurring per second. Lesser is the time period. Lesser the time period, more is the number of collisions occurring per second. Less is the probability of diffusion of such gases. This is how the calculation of mean free path helps us to understand why is it so difficult for the gas molecules to disperse into the air if the gas molecules are dense. Large number of molecules are there per unit volume. Okay, thank you, have a nice day.